Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the July 2025 mid-month meeting with the Silverlining Brain Injury Charity. This month, we're joined by Silverliner Hannah, who's a volunteer at St John Ambulance, and her colleague Roa. And we're really delighted they're here to talk to us about their role within St John Ambulance. So welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Well, the reason I wanted to do the talk was one of the London Silverliners mentioned at the end of the month's meeting that they came across a lady who was very disorientated and how they stayed with her for an hour until the ambulance and her family arrived. And that got me thinking that if they'd had a bit more knowledge, maybe they could have helped her more. And that's why I got the idea about doing this talk today and potentially doing a slightly more in-depth one if people are interested. Basically, did you know that less than 1 in 10 people survive an out of hospital cardiac arrest without bystander CPR? That's a question for everyone.
No, I wasn't aware of that, Hannah. Thank you for that fact.
It was because I was trying to help people understand why it's so important. And if you know something as simple as that, you could, like, there's some people within my division who have literally saved their loved one's life by giving them CPR when they've had a heart attack. And that happens to thousands and millions of people a year. So that's why it's something worth knowing. Anyway, sorry, I'll get back on task. I'm Hannah, as Alwyn said. I've been a member of the charity for the last 18 years. And I originally joined St John Ambulance when I was 15 years old, as I wanted to be a paramedic, but me and my mum knew, due to my challenges from my brain injury, that would be completely impractical because I'll probably never drive. So my mum found out about St John Ambulance and took me to the first meeting. And I really enjoyed being with people in the community, which was very nice, and having a community of my own by being in St John Ambulance. I love getting to help people at events and meeting people from all different backgrounds and all different walks of life, and helping people in their time of need. Sorry if it seems like I'm reading it out, but I have put this presentation together in less than a week, so I haven't had time to practice.
I think you're doing well.
I left St John's in 2018 due to other commitments, but have been looking into rejoining since I saw St John Ambulance volunteers helping during the COVID pandemic with the vaccinations. And I remember my first thought being, I wish I was there. And I did actually go on to be a vaccination volunteer, but it was without St John's because they didn't have positions at the time. So I've only recently rejoined them in the last 6 months or so, as a first aider, and I'm on duty a Sunday at a 10K event, which I'm praying to God I do not overheat, because that will not be good.
Fingers crossed.
I have pre-warned, for Roa's sake, the TCM. So fingers crossed, it's all good. Anyway, so I re-qualified in May, and I'm doing this talk because I want to encourage others to learn these important life skills. And today I want to talk about how you could save a life. Sorry. Oh, sorry. I'm so used to doing the iPad. I'm trying to get it to move using tapping it, and it's not working. So what is first aid? First aid is the care provided immediately to a person who's injured or suddenly becomes unwell before the trained medical professionals arrive. So the objectives of first aid is to preserve life, prevent the condition getting worse, and to try and promote recovery. Sorry, I've gone to tap it again. Skills that can help save a life is knowing basically Dr. ABC, which stands for danger response, checking their airway, checking their breathing, circulation. I put D because early defibrillation, if someone's having a cardiac arrest, can increase their chances of survival by, I think it was something bonkers like 3 times. Also, if I did a more in-depth conversation, I'd also cover things like what to do when choking occurs, controlling bleeding, shock, and to know when to call for help. And then I'll put on here basically that if people were interested in one, it would be a minimum of 10 to a max of 12 people to do a session. And it would be open to all Silverliners from every group. And, you know, if they wanted a support or family member to come, then obviously that's, you know, up to them to do. Basically, that's, I kind of tried to make it short and sweet because I thought people might have questions. So I wanted to try and leave time for that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hannah, and of course, Roa. That was really, really interesting. Thank you. Yeah, so I'd like to kick off the questions if that's okay.
Yeah,
So
sure.
with the Dr. ABCD, do you have to go through that in that sequence, or are there cases where you would jump to one before the other?
Well, the reason genuinely you would is because, say, for example, someone's been electrocuted, like but you just see them lying unconscious on the floor, so you don't. They could have been electrocuted by the kettle and been, you know, in the shock, being thrown a bit away from it, and you don't know they're being shot by a kettle, and then you electrocute yourself. You're then given two patients.
Yeah,
Whereas
cool.
if you check for like danger or hazards around you, then you're keeping yourself safe and increasing the chance of being able to help yourself and the other person.
Yeah, I think Dr. ABC was made in an easier way for us to remember how to save a life. It's quite important that you follow these steps and that you follow them accordingly. So if you jump straight away to checking if someone has a catastrophic bleeding, but the person is not breathing, you're kind of defeating the purpose. You go, you check your dangers, you check for any responses. If they're not checking, or if they're not replying at all, sorry, then you check their airway. And it's really important to go through that cycle because that proper cycle sets you up for life-saving treatment.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great.
I just saw Gopal put in a question. So a TCM is actually what I said, Gopal. You're very close, and it basically just means treatment centre manager. So when we go on events, whether they're local or whether it's a central London one, like say Pride, which happened recently, every different first aid point will have someone assigned as the manager, and they call it a treatment centre manager. So because I'm aware that overheating is one of my triggers for my seizures, I specifically emailed him to give him the heads up because the last time we had a hot weekend like this, I overheated in my cousin's garden. So I thought, although I'll do everything to reduce the chances, if he's aware of that, then he can, you know, be aware that I might need to take an extra break or go and stand in the shade. And it's not to avoid what I'm doing, it's to try and reduce myself becoming a casualty, basically.
Yeah, I think it's important that safety of all volunteers is paramount. So we can't help others if we can't help ourselves. So it's constantly, if you have any different needs or if you have anything extra that you would need during an event, you can always email whoever is in charge of your side of your section. They'll be always happy to accommodate. So we're very accommodating.
Thank you. Has anyone got any other questions? I note that there's a comment about any potential face-to-face demonstration being online as well. We will, of course, try to do that, but I think practically that might be challenging, and it might be better for us to record such an event and then maybe publish it later, because of the fact that there might be people trying to assess a mannequin or something. So I think it will be better to record it in that situation, but we can certainly address that in the future.
I think that I would probably agree with that. That
Yeah.
recording it is probably a more practical way for people to see it properly, because you're moving around the person's body if you're like checking them over or rolling them into a recovery position. You're not necessarily going to see that.
Exactly.
If you've got it live, because the angle might be wrong and things like that.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Simon,
I just had a question. I just wondered, Hannah, if you could give us an example of an actual situation where you had to provide first aid.
I'm going to go historical because it's one
of course.
I remember that I think a lot of people, whether it's pre-injury or after injury, can relate to. Well, bar me because I don't drink. I was at Notting Hill Carnival once, and I had to deal with, at the same time, 2 unconscious patients, one that had to have 3 like drips like you see on like the ambulance programs in order to rehydrate themselves, that they were remotely conscious, and another person at the same time who was semi-conscious, whose sister had to like drive from almost the other side of London to come.
Hannah, did you have to apply the drips?
No, I'm not certified, so it had to be done by, I think it was one of the nurses. I think it was Tom Webster came and did it, I think.
Makes sense.
It has to be a nurse, paramedic, or doctor, I think. Isn't that correct, Tara?
Yeah, that is correct. We do have different clinical roles within our organization, and on every event we do have higher clinical staff. We hire everyone is the same level and deserves the same respect at the end of the day, but sometimes we need a bit more highly skilled people who do it for a living to help us out and to make sure that we don't make any mistakes.
Makes sense. And I suppose the other thing is you've always got 999 you can dial.
We try and avoid dialing 999 when we're on events. So what we do is, what our goal is to remove any backlash and remove any big events or sending through a lot of people through to the NHS, because NHS is already really crowded.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we do have a lot of units. We do have a lot of paramedics, especially on the bigger ships, a lot of paramedics, a lot of doctors, a lot of consultants working with us, and they're all volunteers, so none of them are getting paid. What they do is they try and remove the backlash. They try and treat on scene and then discharge on scene. In very rare cases, that doesn't work out, and we get HEMS in. HEMS is the helicopter emergency services for events such as during Notting Hill Carnival. Unfortunately, we do see quite a lot of stabbings, so we do get sometimes HEMS in during the bigger events, or during smaller events we do get a crew in, an ECA crew, an emergency ambulance crew, and then they transport the patient to preferred hospital.
Wow.
And
thank you.
Going back to what we were talking about prior to our joining about this talk on Wednesday from the London Air Ambulance, that's another word for them. HEMS is the alternative word for an air ambulance, just for clarification for people that might not understand the terminology as well.
Yeah.
But you did give a good description, Ra. I just thought that might be something people could associate it with more.
No, yeah. They're amazing. They're very, I don't know if they're quick, but they're amazing. They can do a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are very, very skilled. Does anyone else have any other questions? And also, from what was said, would people be interested in us trying to arrange a talk to go a bit more in detail?
Yes, please.
Learn life-saving skills.
I can provide all the ANIs, the defibrillations, whatever it is that we need to set up this.
So if we can find a venue like maybe Boltbed and Kemp or somewhere central for people to get to, that could be good, because we could potentially ask her, I don't know how doable it would be, but where they meet for the monthly meeting is in Farringdon.
Fair
So
enough.
potentially
Okay.
we could ask the Farringdon offices if we had a date and knew in advance.
Yeah.
Potentially maybe we could ask them if we could borrow some things from them and take it back that day, because
Yeah.
then it saves us carrying it from Barnet.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever works best for everyone.
Good
I'm
idea.
just thinking to make it easier and more practical, because carry Annie's from Barnet on the tube would just be a nightmare.
It is a nightmare, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Especially with this-
Robert, I've just put my email in the chat there. So if you want to have a note of it.
try and find it.
Yeah. If not, we can always send it to you through Hannah.
I can always pass it on to her as well, Louise.
Yeah, of course, of
Lovely.
course.
Yes.
If she can't find it in the chat, I can always
Yeah,
send
of course, of course.
Did find it.
So, ladies, it strikes
it right
me
down
that
the bottom row.
Hannah, it strikes me that every person on the planet ought to have some very rudimentary life-saving skills.
Hey, Simon,
be-
they're actually trying to get it into schools
Yeah,
and make it
perfect.
part of the curriculum.
Yeah, so all I'm saying is it would be amazing if you guys could provide us with, just maybe come up with some situations that possibly could happen. Like, for example, someone cuts themselves in the home, or there's a burn, that sort of thing. Those just simple things I think would be really useful to know what to do in an emergency situation.
I've got a theory of way to maybe Lewin could send out an email for interest to the different groups and ask, is there anything specific people want covered? And then me and Mandy, me and Roa, and if Irina's available, can come up with a presentation that tries to cover all those areas people most likely want to cover, along with the essentials like CPR and things like that we could include anyway. What do you think, Roa?
Yeah, I mean, I am the trainer, so I can always help set something up. We can always work with Irina. I am a med student. Irina is a paramedic student, so
I guess what I'm saying is, it's almost by definition a medical emergency. It will come out of the blue. So you will know. You always have to be prepared for any eventuality. So I'm just thinking it would be really useful in the home if people generally had some rudimentary understanding of first aid to be able to do the right thing if someone burns themselves or cut themselves, or other. We could come up with a whole long list of things, I suppose.
Yeah, I know there is a training, because a lot of people do first aid at work, but there is a training that is first aid at home for people who stay at
great.
home. So that is something we can discuss, and that is something we can go through to just go.
That would be really good.
Burn schools, falling over, tripping, how to get yourself up on your own, because sometimes you fall, there is no one around. How can I get up?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm certainly thinking of you, Hannah, with your little one. If suddenly when your little one's toddling around and upsets something and gets burnt or something, you'd want to be able to apply first aid straight away. And I think in that situation, I mean, many of us could find ourselves in a similar sort of situation, and just to be able to know what to do in that situation would be really helpful.
Yeah, early CPR, early whatever, early treatment is always life-saving. So you're better off knowing what to do, even if it's just a tiny bit. You're better off knowing what to do than waiting for the ambulance to get there, and by the time they get there, it might be a bit more severe.
Absolutely, yeah. That's really the sort of thing I'm thinking about.
Tina, what did you want to say? Because Roa, did you meet Glenn and Craig Rowland before they left St John's?
No, I didn't.
This is their mum. They were in front of me as step.
Yeah. What I was going to say, if my son started St John's literally from the age of 5 onwards, and I would recommend, if you know anybody that's young, and that it's a really, really good opportunity for them to start at a younger age and get into St John's Ambulance.
That's a really good idea.
Only for friendship and getting to know people.
There is no,
but it gets them
no age
to know how to do first aid, and it was the best thing that my sons ever did. And they've helped loads of people, and even now they're still doing it and they still help people. We can be in a shop or anything, and the first aider call that goes out, they can still go and they'll help people.
Brilliant.
See what's going on. And it is the best thing that anyone can ever do.
Absolutely.
Help their children or any nephew, niece, try and get them involved. It's the best thing I'd recommend to do.
I agree, Tina. I agree. There is no age to first aid, and I think everyone should know first aid.
And
We're
everyone
trying to
should
get
know
it
about
incorporated into schools from a very young age. A lot of schools are starting to teach that. Matter of
Good.
very fun fact, our cadets, two 16-year-olds and a 17-year-old saved the life of the CEO of Iceland.
Oh my word.
So
Yeah.
as we were trying to as the organization was trying to cut funds for the cadets, they actually saved his life, and he donated quite a lot of money, which brought them right back at the top. And
Amazing.
first aid is really, it has nothing to do with age, regardless of how young or how old you are. If you know
Amazing.
first aid, you can help people around you.
That's it. And I've tried to pick up stuff from them, but you know, it's unbelievable what they've learned, and you know, what they can do for people. And you're so proud when you see them, like in the shop, and suddenly they call out and no first aider answers. And the next thing, my one's sort of shut off in the shop and gone to help somebody while they're waiting for the first aider.
Yeah.
You know, and it's so rewarding. You know, like even in hospital, my son was sort of saying to the nurses, well, surely you got to do this. And the nursing staff didn't even know what to do when he got burnt. And it was just unbelievable.
Amazing.
It's just unbelievable what happens. But yeah, I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah.
To take up and to learn as much as you can.
Oh, I think Gopal has a question.
Hi, Roa. Hi, Hannah. Right, I was at on a conference on Wednesday with the Helms team and the ambulance crew. So what I learned from that was they listened to all 999s going through the operating systems at London Waterloo Station in Waterloo, close to where I work, right in the operations centre. Right, so they've got 3 stages of them sending out, which is high priority, then medium, and then low. Depends on the level. The call will be answering the call, as well as getting ABC questions out from the patients to see which is best fit or transport, road, land, or air, if you understand.
Yeah,
With the Helms teams, right? So with that one, and what Hannah said, the Helms team told me that as well at the conference, is to get young as 5 years old, trained into answering calls when they dial 999 or St John's ambulance crew, to ask them how if the patient's breathing, and then do whatever they need to the child to help the mom or dad in resuscitating them or preventing them from getting choked or anything else. Roha. So that's if we get the kids started from a young age, it will save the parents' lives. From someone
it's true. I do agree, Gopal. We do work indeed with CAT system. We work with CAT system with the ambulance services, which means when we get a call in, there are, let's say we have one ambulance, but we have 2 different calls. We have a drunk guy who seems fine. He's still talking, but he's got his head a little bit. So he's not bleeding severely or anything at all, but he's sitting on the bench. He's just fine. But we have someone else who's currently not breathing. So that would be a Cat 1. So an ambulance will be disposed and will be sent there. And that's how we prioritize, and that's how we try and manage, because the NHS 999 is receiving a lot of calls. And that's one way of us trying to work with the system and us trying to get people seen. Sorry, Hannah, go ahead.
I was going to say, Roa, I don't know if it's still the case, because I hadn't heard that. St John's still, I know during the pandemic they were used as extra ambulance crew. Are they still sometimes deployed to help with the shortage in ambulance? Is that the case?
We do have ECA staff that gets hired out and that gets sent out with actual NHS crew, with LAS crew. So LAS is the London Ambulance Services, that's what it stands for. So we do have sometimes our own crew that gets sent out with actual NHS staff. So we are volunteers, but people who do go out with the LAS during these shifts do get some kind of compensation and do get some kind of pay for their hours.
Okay.
Thank you
Well,
so
that
much.
was very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Hannah and Roa. And
Hannah,
well done,
I'm just so in awe of you. You're amazing that you've done all this. Well done.
Yeah, I did it for 12 years before I left in 2018, and then I've just rejoined, but best thing I've done.
Amazing. And I'm not detracting from you, Hannah, at all, but I know Hannah. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Well
she's done
done.
really well.
Thank you so, so much. Very interesting.
Yeah, thank you so much. Congratulations to both of you. Well done.
Roa, thank you so much, Conan, because it's been a real help with answering some of the questions. That's why I knew I needed a second person. So I really appreciate you being
I'm
available.
sure you would have coped brilliantly, Hannah.
Yeah, I'm sure you would have done really well, but I'm happy